Efendim 2 Michelin yıldızlı ve yeşil Michelin yıldızına sahip Kadeau'nun kurucusu, ortağı ve şefi Nicolai Nørregaard, İskandinav mutfağının hareketinin öncü isimlerinden biri. Bornholm's Smoking Heritage, Tradition and Innovation konu başlığıyla Danimarkalı isim, ünlü şef sahnede. Nicolai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a little video to play first. Maybe it's gonna come. Yeah. Okay. So I'm actually here to only talk about one dish. I mean, we could talk about, of course, a lot of dishes, but heritage is, of course, the theme, and there's one thing that's very much a heritage for me as a chef, and also for Kadeau as a restaurant. But to be able to understand that legacy, I need to give you a little bit of background. This is my restaurant. It's called Kadeau. Opened in 2007 on the island of Bornholm, a small island in the Baltic Sea, by two friends, me being one of them, and Rasmus being the other one. And I ended up in the kitchen, and we had some success in the end. And in 2011, we wanted to expand the business and open up a restaurant in Copenhagen, as being the capital of Denmark. And we did it to begin with, to be able to be more in Copenhagen, as we had kids and whatever. We tried to do it like a bit incognito, keep it under the radar, but that went pretty quickly to shit. After moving a few times, we're now in the location in Christianshavn, very nice neighborhood in Copenhagen. This being our home, and Bornholm being our summer house, kind of. That's how we want to look at it. The basic ethos of Kadeau is based on the terroir of Bornholm. We very quickly joined the Nordic movement back in 2007 when it was very young. We wanted to make a cuisine that's Nordic, but even more local, hyper-local, focusing on the island of Bornholm. Bornholm is very small. It's like a third of the size of Mallorca. 40,000 people live there. It's a granite island, like a rock island. It's split in two by two tectonical plates that are meeting in the middle, so it creates like one half of the island, very flat, sandy, beautiful meadows, and the other part being super rocky, hilly, and very dramatic, which creates like super amazing small microclimates, and also creating all sorts of Scandinavian nature in this little small spot. So we can get anything from the rocky shores to the sand, and we can find basically anything. The soil there is very lush, so there's an abundance of vegetables and wild herbs, which we base our cuisine on, of course. Just one sec. The idea was to build a kitchen that's based on culinary traditions, like the heritage of Bornholm, but also focusing on, of course, the wild and our gardens. We have a garden, so we grow a lot of stuff ourselves. The basic DNA of the restaurant is preservation. So we preserve around 10 to 12 tons of stuff every single year, which we get from the nature, but also from the wild, like in our gardens, of course. But to take a little bit back to the heritage of this specific dish, it goes back to the history of the island. I'm just going to click through this, very big. This one. The culinary origins of Bornholm is based on anything that comes from the Baltic Sea, basically. In the late medieval ages, salted herring was the biggest. This is not from the medieval ages, by the way. It was the salted herring from the Baltic area was the third biggest commodity in Europe, actually, back then. So they would bring the salted herring down south, and they would bring back spices to the Nordic region. In the 1800s, roughly, slowly the herring or fishing industry became more like focusing on smoke, which is the actual heritage of the island of Bornholm. It's mostly herring, but also, of course, salmon, as we're bringing on today. It's called the gold of Bornholm because, of course, the herring would be golden and worth a lot. In the 50s, when it was at its highest, there would be around 130 smokehouses on the island, which is a lot on such a small island. And it would usually be the wives, the women, as you can see on the picture, smoking the fish, traditionally on open fire. And they would also smoke cigarettes while doing it. Growing up, my uncle had the last smokehouse on the island that was smoking in a traditional way, like you see it here on the pictures. And for me, it's like extremely important to dive into that heritage and to actually also bring it into a modern context. Because when my uncle died in 2010, the last old school smokehouse also died with him. And today there's only 10 smokehouses left on the island, and they usually just runs like restaurants. So for me, it's extremely important to keep the heritage and to bring it forward. I was actually going to put on a dish with a smoked herring from my uncle's smokehouse, but then he passed away, and then I had to figure out something else. And this is a result of that, you could say. It's the only dish that constantly is on the menu. We change the menu. In Copenhagen, we change the menu completely twice a year. We work with two seasons, a growing season and a preservation season. preservation season, focusing, of course, on all the stuff we do on the island. Anything from canning, salting, sweet pickles, anything. But this dish has been on the menu for 9 years, and it's very important that it stays on the menu because, of course, I think it's the heritage of me, the heritage of my family, the heritage of Bornholm. But to bring it into a stage of modern cooking, to add a little bit of innovation to this very, very ancient technique, we figured out to combine two very classic ways of smoking salmon. So one, of course, we get the fresh salmon in, fillet it, we add salt, 3% roughly of dry salt. As you can also see, you can see it there. This is, of course, to ensure that the salmon is salted. It releases liquids, firms up the meat also. It needs to sit in, it forms a brine, of course, from the liquids. It needs to sit in that for 4 days. And after that, we dry it for around 3 days to make it completely dry. And then we cold smoke it as the one technique, which of course is also an Asian technique. It's more like a preservation technique for the salmon to keep. Traditionally in the smokehouses, it's hot smoking. It also provides a little bit of preservation, but it's mostly for consumption pretty fast. So the innovation in this is combining the cold smoked and the hot smoked techniques. So what happens is when we cold smoke it, the smoke, it smokes for around 12 hours at room temperature. And the cold smoking will ensure the meat inside the fish, it creates this basically a crust around it, which then, when it's hot smoked, ensures that all the liquids, all the moisture, everything stays inside the meat. So in that way, basically casing in all the liquids and juice, which then, when we serve it, just ensures this buttery, soft, if you ask me, very nice salmon, right? Yeah, I'm sorry we couldn't make enough for all of you, but we had to make a few tries. Yeah, I forgot to click this. This is just the filleting. This is the cold smoking process. It's classical. We use cherry wood to give it a bit more fruity. It's very mild in the smoke texture. In the smoke flavor. We just put it in there and make sure that it has this circle of cherry wood burning all the time. And after that, it's time for hot smoking. And the hot smoking is, as you also saw on the old photos, create a fire, let all the embers create, and then we pack wood, beechwood in this case, on top of the embers to make sure that no flame is coming, because if it bursts into flame, of course the meat will burn, or the temperature will be too high. The temperature has to be around 80 degrees, 70, 80 degrees. You can vary in terms of course, where you put it in the oven or in the fireplace. Traditionally, it's alder wood, but we prefer the beechwood. Also, you can call that a bit of an innovation, because if my uncle would have lived, he would have probably killed me. And then, of course, we serve it. This is done just pre-service, so it's a cooking technique, of course, done just before the guests are arriving. We serve it usually with a sauce made from herring garum and butter that's infused with lavender, and then a very humble onion on top with preserves. Super simple, but it's pretty good, I would say. You can see this. We usually serve it tableside, of course, so the guests can actually see. We dig out all the nice meats and serve it with this little humble onion on top. That's it for the heritage of smoked fish. Thank you.
Where are you going so fast?
Oh,
Hello. Nicolai, I was in Denmark 2 weeks ago. I loved your country so much.
Thank you so much.
It was my first visit and I loved your food too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you for being
Of course.
with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hep alkışlar şeflere, hep alkışlar şeflere. Efendim değerli konuklarımız